Hello lovely viewers, and welcome back to the Bold and the Beautiful News official YouTube channel, your top destination for the most explosive CBS soap updates. Make sure to smash that subscribe button and give this video a huge thumbs up. The sun had barely broken over the glittering skyline of Los Angeles when the Spencer jet touched down with a thrum that matched the trembling heartbeat of a man who hadn't stepped foot in the city in over 5 years. Wyatt Spencer, older, a little heavier with grief and wisdom, stepped off the stairs with his young son cradled in one arm and a duffel bag in the other, the kind of fatherly figure forged not from peace, but from the trials of abandonment, missed birthdays, and the echoing silence of not knowing if his brother Liam would ever open his eyes again, a silence that Bill Spencer shattered less than 24 hours ago when he called his son and said words no parent should ever have to say: "Your brother might not make it, Wyatt, and he's asking for you." And just like that, Wyatt knew that every distance he'd created, every excuse he'd made, every scar he tried to ignore needed to be burned away in the baptism of this moment, of this reckoning, so he packed his life and more importantly his son, the one none of the Forresters, none of the Spencers, not even Bill himself knew about, young Callum, wide-eyed and curious, a boy with Liam's cheekbones and Wyatt's stubborn brow, born of a short-lived relationship in Aspen and raised in quiet humility, far away from the generational noise of dynasties, betrayals, and legacy. And now, as Wyatt stepped into the marble-clad corridors of Spencer Publications first to announce his arrival, jaws dropped and gasps echoed as if a ghost had walked in, but Bill, the ruthless titan turned weeping father, didn't care for the shock. He rushed to embrace his estranged son, clinging to Wyatt not just with desperation but with something closer to repentance. And when his eyes fell to the little boy hiding behind Wyatt's leg, it was like the world stood still. "Who's this?" Bill asked, his voice cracking like the first raindrop in a long drought, and Wyatt, firm yet gentle, answered, "This is Callum, your grandson." And suddenly the air thickened with emotion, with unspoken regrets, with the ghosts of what could have beens, and Callum, shyly holding his plush elephant, looked up at Bill with curiosity untainted by the sins of his bloodline, and it was in that moment that Bill, the stallion, the tycoon, the unapologetic manipulator, broke, kneeling before the boy and whispering, "Welcome to the family, son," like it was a prayer, a baptismal vow uttered not in water but in blood and tears. And while the family reeled from this revelation, Katie and Donna both stood back, stunned, hearts shattering and mending all at once at the sight of a new Spencer generation stepping into a house that had long lost its innocence. But Wyatt didn't come to rejoin the family for legacy, he came for Liam, for the brother who once protected him from school bullies, who covered for him when he ran away at 16, who gave him advice on love even while losing his own. And as Wyatt marched down the hallway of the hospital where Liam now lay pale and unconscious, hooked up to machines that beeped like ticking time bombs, he whispered to his son, "You're about to meet your uncle, he's the reason we're here." And Callum nodded solemnly like he understood the gravity of meeting someone who might not live long enough to remember it. And when they entered the ICU, Hope stood up, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hair tangled from sleepless nights, and the sight of Wyatt made her gasp audibly, her hands covering her mouth. "Wyatt," she choked out, and then she saw the boy, and the truth hit her like a freight train because her heart recognized that child before her mind did. He looked so much like Liam in the photos they once took together, and for a moment, she wasn't Hope Logan, grieving almost widow, she was just a woman, staring at what should have been a family, a child, a future never pursued, and her knees nearly buckled, but Wyatt caught her with the same strength he once held her with during their short-lived engagement, whispering, "I'm here, Hope, we're all here." And that was when the baptism truly began, when the emotional floodgates opened and everything, every lie, every betrayal, every lost moment, poured out with raw, sacred intensity. As Bill took the floor in Liam's room and demanded silence, his voice echoing off the sterile hospital walls like a judge delivering divine judgment, "No more secrets. Not today. Liam deserves truth, and so does this child. So if anyone's holding back, speak now or get the hell out." And Donna wept quietly while Katie took Callum's hand, instantly drawn to the boy as if he were her own, and Brooke, who had just arrived, stared between Wyatt and the boy and whispered to Ridge who stood beside her, "That child is a Spencer, no doubt about it," while Ridge simply crossed his arms and muttered, "Looks like the next chapter of the war has just been born." And just as those words were spoken, Liam stirred slightly in his bed, his lips parting, voice hoarse and almost inaudible, but clear enough for every heart in the room to crack, Wyatt, and Wyatt was at his side in seconds, grabbing his brother's hand and saying, "I'm here, man. You just rest. I brought someone you need to meet," and when Callum stepped closer to the bed, placing his tiny hand in Liam's weak one, there was a stillness that transcended the hospital, like the whole world paused to witness a spiritual moment, a rebirth, a new beginning, not through church rites or holy water, but through flesh, forgiveness, and fragile hope. And as the monitors beeped steadily in the background and the family huddled closer, the baptism had truly begun, not in the traditional sense, but in the emotional firestorm that comes when truths are revealed, generations collide, and love, no matter how messy, proves itself stronger than legacy, lies, or lineage. In the design office, Hope and Carter discussed Liam's inoperable brain mass and his options for treatment, or lack thereof. Beth and Hope should spend as much time as possible with Liam before anything else, according to Carter, who expressed his desire to be Beth's best stepfather. Hope said she never could have imagined a tumor like this would have ever become an issue. Carter thought he would be furious if he were Liam and feel robbed. Hope lamented how selfless Liam was and didn't deserve it. Carter noted that Bill never appreciated Liam or had his qualities, and Hope agreed. She was grateful that Liam's great attributes were passed on to their daughter. Despite the fact that she was aware of how difficult it would be for both of them to say goodbye, she hoped that Beth would treasure her memories of Liam. "For all we know, that final goodbye could be closer than we think," she cried. The police and medical personnel attended the scene at the beach house. Ms. Dayton was shocked when she was released and saw the dramatic scene in the classroom. Paramedics conferred with Finn as Steffi begged them to save Liam. The police tried to understand why Luna was out to get Steffi, but she didn't want to get into it as she hovered over Liam. She verified the gun and how it was used. Sheila, Luna, and Liam were rushed to the hospital. Dr. Buckingham was shocked to see Liam wheeled in as Finn called out that there were multiple bullet wounds coming in. Steffi finally began to tell the police about Luna's connections to everyone because the police insisted on knowing. Lee walked up and was shocked at what was going on. Steffi cried that Liam was shot and there was so much blood lost. "He can't be lost," she gasped to Lee. While Finn stood by, Steffi told Lee the entire story. Lee rushed in to help with surgery. Steffi told Finn that she knew Luna was his daughter, but if she survived and Luna didn't, she didn't know what she would do. Finn told Dr. Buckingham he didn't want to tend to Sheila and for her to do it, while he went to operate on Liam. She operated on Sheila's foot but asked to be updated on Liam throughout the procedure and told a nurse to contact Deacon. Then, she put Sheila under anesthetic and began to operate. In another room, Lee and Bridget operated on Luna. They were unable to locate the bullet in her abdomen side because she had lost a lot of blood. Bridget worried that Luna would bleed out, but Lee said she refused to let her niece die that way. In the waiting room, the policeman tried to comfort Steffi that Liam had too much to live for to die. She told him she'd be the one on the operating table if not for Liam. Steffi stopped a nurse as she passed. She told her that she needed to go to the operating room and let Liam know that she was there for him, but the nurse declined her request. She told Steffi that the only people who could be in the room were the operation team. Steffi said she knew that but asked again anyway. The nurse relented that she couldn't be in the room, but she could watch through the observation window. Steffi watched as Finn operated on Liam. On an X-ray, Finn could see the bullet behind his ribcage, near Liam's heart. Steffi called Hope and told her what happened, and said to come to University Hospital right away. Hope and Carter rushed out of Forrester immediately. Dr. After removing the bullet, Buckingham finished stitching Sheila's foot while a nurse informed her that Sheila's husband had been contacted and was on his way. Sheila remained unconscious as Grace noted that her operation was easy, but Liam and Luna could go either way. Bridget and Lee stabilized Luna in the operating room as Lee noticed how troubled she was. Bridget asked if anyone had called Luna's mother, but Lee said she wanted to be the one to tell Penelope. Another bleeding victim appeared at that very moment. A nurse told them that Luna's blood pressure was dropping and they were losing her. "Luna! Lee yelled. The weekly The Bold and the Beautiful must-watch moments for July 14th to 18th tease the week ahead features Bill's impatience as he anxiously awaits word on Liam's operation, and then, he makes a surprising move with Liam. Additionally, Finn and Bridget admire Liam's resilience. Tune in on CBS or Paramount Plus next week so you can catch all of the dramatic moments in Los Angeles week of July 14th to 18th Monday, July 14th, 2025. Number 9566 Finn, Deacon, and Sheila mourn the passing of Luna. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers tease that the drama amps up as the fashion show wraps up. Eric concocted a plan that should have been foolproof with the Portofino-inspired look as the showstopper, but it didn't have the desired effect. Ridge plans to stay with Taylor despite Brooke's best efforts because she is lost without him. Meanwhile, Daphne has flown under the radar since she arrived in Los Angeles. No one has questioned why she dropped in to do a perfume line until now. Hope is still figuring out what's next for her, but things are shaky with everyone except Deacon. Here's what's happening on The Bold and the Beautiful as May sweeps roll in. Bridge or Tridge? The biggest debate has always been whether Ridge should be with Brooke or Taylor. He is the original waffler, switching back and forth between the women and sharing kids with both. Ridge chose Taylor after he believed Brooke was involved in the Forrester takeover. Despite learning that was not the case, after seeing Brooke's despair, Eric devised a plan for the fashion show. Although it may have brought back memories of Bridge, it didn't change the situation. The Bold and the Beautiful video teases Eric telling Ridge he belongs with Brooke, but that doesn't go over well. He reminds his father that he is committed to Taylor. Katie wants answers. Katie confronts Daphne and asks her whether she only came to town to do Steffi's dirty work. It's unclear what led her to this conclusion, but she is spot on calling out the French beauty. The Logan women stick together, and after learning about Hope being hurt by Carter because of the kiss he shared with Daphne, Katie wants answers. We suspect that's what Katie is suspicious of, not that Daphne was specifically asked to seduce Carter and guilt him into returning Forrester to the Forresters. When Katie confronts Daphne the following week, what will she respond with? Meanwhile, Carter is begging Hope to take him back and complete their love story. He wants to spend forever with her, but she isn't interested because of his recent actions. Be sure to tune in all next week to see what happens between Brooke and Ridge and if Daphne claps back at Katie. In the sleek, sterile calm of the Forrester design office, the gravity of reality weighed heavily on Hope and Carter as they sat across from one another, their expressions tight with emotion, their voices barely above a whisper as they unpacked the devastating news about Liam's inoperable brain tumor, news that seemed more like a nightmare than something that could possibly be real. Hope's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she voiced how unimaginable it was that Liam, her first love, Beth's father, the man who had stood as protector, friend, and emotional anchor for so many, was facing such a cruel twist of fate. Carter, trying his best to remain the grounded voice of strength, quietly confessed that all he wanted now was to be the kind of stepfather Beth could count on, but more than that, he wanted Beth to be able to spend precious time with her biological father while he was still lucid and present. He's still Beth's daddy, Carter reminded Hope, and no matter what happens between us, Liam deserves every possible moment with her. Hope nodded, voice cracking as she admitted how unjust it all felt, how someone as selfless and devoted as Liam didn't deserve to be robbed of his future. Carter couldn't help but add that Bill, Liam's own father, had never appreciated Liam's gentle strength or moral compass, but the world would remember it through Beth. She has his heart, Hope whispered, trembling. But how do I tell her that she's going to lose him? Carter reached for her hand, promising they'd navigate the impossible together, though even he couldn't promise a happy ending. Meanwhile, miles away, chaos had already descended on the beach house where the sound of sirens wailed over the crashing waves, and the classroom-turned-crime scene was swarming with police and paramedics. Ms. Dayton, visibly shaken, was released from her brief detainment just in time to witness the trail of blood, toppled desks, and shattered innocence, her mouth falling open at the sight of officers questioning Steffi while Finn performed field triage on Liam. Steffi hovered over Liam's body, her hands stained with his blood, begging anyone who would listen to save him, her voice raw and trembling with desperation. The police officers circled in, needing answers. Why had Luna turned a gun on Steffi? Why was Liam bleeding on the floor? What exactly had happened? But Steffi could barely string coherent words together as she clutched Liam's limp hand and sobbed that he had saved her, that he had stepped in and shielded her from a bullet, and that now he was dying because of it. Finn confirmed multiple gunshot wounds as he coordinated with the EMTs, his focus entirely on keeping Liam breathing. Meanwhile, Luna, barely conscious and disoriented, was being wheeled into a separate ambulance beside a stunned Sheila, who had also been injured in the melee. At the hospital, chaos continued. As Dr. Grace Buckingham arrived, her face contorted in disbelief at the sight of Liam being rushed past her. Finn shouted updates, multiple injuries, critical blood loss, no time to waste. When the police cornered Steffi again, she finally explained through tears how Luna had spiraled, how Liam had stepped in, and how Sheila had somehow been shot in the foot during the scuffle. Lee appeared, stunned by the carnage and even more horrified when she saw Luna among the injured. Steffi collapsed into her arms, weeping uncontrollably. "We can't lose him. Not Liam. He saved me. He saved all of us." Finn overheard her and assured Steffi he would do everything in his power to save Liam, even as he handed Sheila's care off to Dr. Buckingham, refusing to treat the woman who had once threatened everything he loved. Grace nodded and began treating Sheila's foot, calling for anesthetics and ordering a nurse to contact Deacon, while making sure she was kept informed on Liam's progress throughout. In yet another wing of the hospital, Lee and Bridget were in the thick of emergency surgery on Luna, who was rapidly losing blood, the bullet lodged deep in her abdomen. Bridget worried aloud they were losing her, but Lee's determination was absolute. She refused to let her niece die, not like this, not with so many unanswered questions and broken dreams between them. In the waiting area, Steffi, still covered in Liam's blood, sat trembling as a police officer tried to reassure her that Liam had too much to live for to give up now. She confessed she'd be the one on the table if not for Liam's heroic intervention, but her guilt and panic overwhelmed any gratitude. Spotting a nurse walking by, Steffi pleaded to be allowed into the operating room, needing to be close to Liam, to speak to him, to let him know he wasn't alone, but the nurse reminded her that only the surgical team could be inside. Still, she relented a bit and guided Steffi to the observation window, where Steffi could watch Finn working frantically over Liam's body. Through the glass, Steffi saw Finn examining an X-ray with intense focus. The bullet was lodged just behind Liam's ribcage, dangerously close to his heart. That was all it took for Steffi to grab her phone and call Hope. "Come to the hospital," she sobbed. "It's bad. You need to be here. Now." At Forrester, Hope and Carter immediately dropped everything and rushed out, panic settling over them like a storm. Back in the surgical suite, Grace finished removing the bullet from Sheila's foot and began stitching her up, while a nurse informed her that Deacon had been notified. Sheila remained unconscious as Grace reflected aloud how her procedure was nothing compared to the peril Liam and Luna were in. Over in Luna's operating room, Bridget and Lee worked like clockwork, stabilizing Luna for a moment before another bleed sent them scrambling. A nurse's panicked voice cut through the air. Luna's pressure was dropping again. "We're losing her," the nurse cried. Lee, shouting Luna's name, refused to stop, refused to give up. She wouldn't let her niece die, not now, not after everything. Meanwhile, Deacon paced the waiting room, fear etched across his face, waiting for any news about Sheila. Hope and Carter arrived and ran to Steffi, demanding updates, but all Steffi could do was gesture helplessly to the window where Liam lay unconscious under Finn's care. "He saved me," she repeated. "He took the bullet meant for me." Hope pressed her hand to the glass, tears falling freely. "He has to pull through. For our daughter. For all of us." Finn, still battling to remove the bullet near Liam's heart, finally succeeded, but the internal damage was severe. He stabilized Liam just as Bridget managed to stop Luna's hemorrhage. For now, both patients were alive, but barely. Back in the lobby, word reached Bill Spencer, who had just arrived and was furious at having been kept in the dark. He demanded answers about his son and stormed toward the OR, only to be held back by security. Meanwhile, the mood across the hospital was heavy with dread and anticipation. As Sheila regained consciousness, Deacon was there waiting, holding her hand, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. She tried to speak, but Deacon hushed her gently. Luna's in surgery. Liam's fighting for his life. But you're here. That's all that matters to me right now. Meanwhile, Penelope Poppy Nozawa was finally contacted by Lee, who chose to deliver the news herself.